Is the new Toyota Tundra reliable? We're going to talk about the reliability of the new Tundra, common problems, everything in today's video. I'll include a link to the Toyota Murray's website in the description down below. They're providing us with this Tundra. I'll also include a link to my car buying guide. Let's get into it. Boom. The first big thing is the engine. So Toyota has gone for a new twin turbo V6 with this new Tundra, and the engine has been problematic. They already recalled over 100,000 vehicles within the Toyota and Lexus brands for engine failures. Now, this was mostly early vehicles, and this was because of a manufacturing problem, but there are still consistent reports of people having engine failures with this new twin turbo V6, especially for the first couple of model years, so basically 22, 23, and 24. Now the 25s are supposed to be better. They're supposed to not have the same manufacturing issues, and I think that, you know, that's probably true, but at the same time there have still been reports of people having issues with this new V6 powertrain. And personally, what I think it comes down to is Toyota went from having big displacement naturally aspirated engines to the smaller displacement twin turbocharged engine. That is a huge shift, and so I do think the technology is there to make this powertrain reliable, at least almost as reliable as the naturally aspirated engines. I just think it's going to take time. I think it's going to take time and a lot of troubleshooting to figure out how to make this type of powertrain last almost as long, or potentially just as long as the naturally aspirated engines. So my practical advice here is to get the hybrid if you can afford it. It seems like the hybrids have way less issues than the non-hybrids, and that's just kind of across the board with these new Toyotas. It's very interesting. But yeah, if you can afford the hybrid, it's worth going for. It gives you extra power, extra fuel economy, and it also seems to give you better reliability. Now the next problem is also under the hood, and that is with the 10-speed transmission. Now this is much less common, especially for the hybrids, but there have been some transmission failures, so it's definitely something to look out for with these new Tundras. And again, it seems like most of the issues plagued the first few years, the 22s, the 23s, and the 24s. The 25s don't seem to have as many issues, but again, they also haven't been out for terribly long. I mean, maybe half a year to a year at this point, so time will tell if the 25s will have the same issues as the earlier model years, but it's definitely something to look out for is the transmission. It also pushes you towards the hybrid route with this new Tundra. I'm trying to hit 500,000 subscribers before the end of the year. I'd really appreciate it if you'd help out with that. The powertrain is obviously a huge part of the truck, but there's also a truck around that powertrain, so how well is the truck itself holding up? There have been some complaints with general kind of fit and finish on this new Tundra. This Tundra also comes with a lot of new features like a factory lift kit as an option. I haven't heard a lot in terms of the reliability of the lift kit, but understand the more you add to a truck, the more there is that'll break, likely. But outside of the general fit and finish that some people have complained about, there's also been kind of rattling. Some people with the doors, also kind of with the bed area, and then also in the cab as well, some rattling reported. So it does seem like the build has definitely suffered with this new Tundra. And I mean, it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to figure this out. I mean, you get into the new Tundra and you kind of just play with some of the trim pieces. Look at this, you got a little bit of wiggle there. The dash is actually pretty solid, but you can see, I mean, everything, it's not like horrible, but things don't seem to be, I mean, look at this, for example. They just don't seem to be as tightly glued on as the stuff in the previous gen Toyotas. While we're on fit and finish, there have been some reports of premature wear on certain items like the seats, for example, steering wheel, not this version, this is like the base version, but like the more loaded up version of the steering wheel, and even the shifter too, and also some people complaining about the fit and finish of the shifter. Something that I will say in Toyota's defense, the Tundra and the Sequoia are both built in the US, and US built Toyotas just tend to not feel as good with the build quality. The Japanese built Toyotas seem to fare a lot better. For example, I tested out a Toyota Land Cruiser for about a year, the new 250 Land Cruiser, and that seemed to have pretty good build quality. Everything seemed to wear nicely over time. It did really well. It didn't have any rattles or anything weird like that, and so yeah, the build quality with the Japanese Toyotas has always been better, but it seems like there's a bigger gap now than there ever has been in the past. Now another problem is with the windows and locks. Basically people complaining that certain hardware just not working. So like Windows not working when you press it, lock and unlock, which this one works just fine. Hopefully, it's brand new. You can also get fancy stuff on the Tundra. This one doesn't have it, but like a tailgate, this one slowly lowers, but a tailgate that'll automatically lower and then raise. So some of these new features that are kind of like a mix between hardware and I guess a little bit of software, people have been having some glitches and stuff just not properly working. Again, they've thrown so much more tech into this new Tundra than it's ever had, and there's some growing pains with all of that extra equipment. But on a positive note, the shocks and the suspension, everything with the new Tundra have been holding up well. The new Tundras are coil sprung, if you don't know, and so you'd think that that might wear faster than the old leaf springs, but it seems like the coil springs are actually doing quite well. Same thing with the new frame. While we're talking about new frame and everything, these new Tundras rust a lot less than the previous gen. There's a lot more plastic, and that's a big part of why. But yeah, it seems like rust isn't as big of an issue. It'll still potentially happen. Again, it's a body on frame vehicle with lots of metal. If you don't take care of it properly, it can rust. I should have probably picked a more loaded up Tundra for this video, but anyways, there's a new big digital gauge cluster in certain packages. This one has the base gauge cluster, also has the base infotainment system, but people have had some glitches with the new tech. Now, it doesn't appear that people are having complete failures with the systems like what's happening in some other vehicles. General Motors, had to say it. But there have been some glitches where features haven't worked properly, or there's been, you know, longer load up times than expected, or just kind of like little things here and there. Again, with my Land Cruiser, with the new systems, I didn't have any glitches. It functioned perfectly fine, but I could see how some stuff could malfunction. Again, Toyota before this had analog gauges with a tiny screen in the center, kind of like what this Tundra has for all of their cars, and they went from that to full digital gauge cluster, and they went from like a pretty small dash integrated infotainment system to the huge tablet that you can get on the dash. And so yeah, with all this new tech, you're gonna have some issues here and there. But surprisingly, unlike other automakers, it doesn't seem like this tech is parasitically draining the battery, so I guess that's a good sign that it's a little bit more integrated, and so that's a plus. So, you know, other than engines and transmissions blowing up, the new Tundra's actually been pretty solid. I know people are going to see that as sarcastic, but the new Tundra has done better than expected, given the fact that Toyota has changed so much with this truck compared to the previous gen truck. And I'm not trying to save face for Toyota. Again, I just say things how they are. You guys saw my Land Cruiser series. I was brutally honest with that whole situation, but I think that this is kind of like phase one for this new setup with Toyotas. And what I mean is there is going to be a new generation Tundra down the road. And my personal guess with this new generation is it's probably not going to change too much compared to this generation. Like, yes, it'll have a new body style. Yes, it'll probably have new features here and there. But what I probably see happening is Toyota taking all of the new tech they've integrated with this Tundra, with the new Sequoia, with the other models, and just fine-tuning it to be more reliable. I think that's what their focus is going to be over the next few years. I don't have any confirmation on that. I haven't talked to anyone at Toyota, but that's my guess because, again, Toyota's reputation is very important when it comes to them selling vehicles. If people don't think Toyotas are reliable, they're not going to buy them. They're going to go buy other stuff because they're like, well, if it's unreliable anyways, I might as well go have something that's a little bit more exciting to drive. And these new Toyotas, they're not bad to drive. They're just not the most thrilling thing on the planet. Again, you buy Toyotas for reliability. You don't buy them for the exciting thrill of the drive. I guess unless it's a GR86, but that's past the point. The point I'm trying to make here is I think this is phase one. I think that Toyota released a bunch of new tech and it's been problematic, but they're working on fixes with it to make it so that it's better integrated. And so as this generation of Tundra goes, you know, through the years, it'll likely get more reliable and everything will be integrated better down the road. And so just like other generations, you have problems at the beginning with the first few years. By the end, it's a very nice polished product, which obviously sucks for people that have bought the first few years of these Toyotas and might have issues. Again, you not will have issues, but you might have issues. But again, this isn't like new. The same thing happened with the previous gen Tundra when they released the 5.7 V8. Like those trucks, people forget, had issues. But then by the end, you know, with the 2020s, the 2021s, that truck was rock solid. And people that have those 2020s and 2021s absolutely love them. So my practical advice, if you're going to get the early years of this new Tundra, well, probably consider getting one with an extended warranty or something like that, you know, just in case. But the best thing that you can do if you can afford it is to get the newest iteration, and I would say get a simpler version. Like this SR5 is a great example. The less tech that the vehicle has, the less that there is to go wrong. Complexity always means you're going to have more issues, and so this not having the digital gauge cluster, having the smaller infotainment system, just having simpler tech in general, no 360 camera, no camera rear view mirror, no sunroof. Like, this is just going to be a truck that less is going to happen. So if reliability is your concern, basic is always going to be the route to go. And if you're looking for like super long term, then just do what a lot of people do with Toyota through the generations and buy the last couple of years of the vehicle in the generation. Again, I know a ton of people that with the last generation of Tundra, they waited and they bought a 2020 or 2021, and they're going to drive that Tundra until this generation reaches its end, and then they'll do the same exact thing. And people that do that end up having the best ownership experience. I currently own a 2021 Toyota Sequoia. That's the second to last year with that generation, and then a 2020 Toyota Land Cruiser. That's the second to last year of that generation, and both of those vehicles have been absolutely fantastic when it comes to reliability, drivability, all of that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of the way to go with Toyotas if reliability is your top concern. That will cap things off for the overview, practical advice, and all of that. Let me know your thoughts on the new Tundra, and let me know what your game plan is when it comes to this new Tundra.